Hello and welcome back to the Premier Injuries Podcast. Today, we're talking all things FPL Game Week 8, analysing it to give you a better Game Week 9 and beyond. Before we start, as always, let me remind you, please do subscribe to the channel. We've seen some fantastic growth through the last month and over the last few weeks. It's been great to see how much you've been enjoying the content. And of course, there's more to come. You know, every week we've got expert analysis in terms of injuries, in terms of all sorts of things, because we go here without any rumor, any misinformation. We just give you the facts. So make sure to subscribe to that. But Lynn, you're back on the show. You've got a bit of an injury though. You have to talk us through your England trip, but when you've made the trip over here, you know, you've got an away game, an away fixture, and you've managed to injure yourself. So I think you need to describe the injury, and then Ben can possibly give us a return to play.
Yeah, so I went to the Arsenal Crystal Palace game last night, and I had Ben White in my team. I've been talking a bit, just mentioned a few times on Twitter that I think Ben White's going to get a goal or at least an assist this week. So he actually had a shot on target. That's like the first shot on target he's had in 2 years' time. But anyway, I was feeling confident, and then suddenly Arsenal was down 2-1 to Crystal Palace. But in the very last minute, Arsenal scored, and it looked like Ben got an assist. So I got so excited, so I just jumped up and started screaming and shouting, and bagged my knee into the cement wall just in front of me. And it hurt like a but yeah, I was too happy to really care. Then I limped home and got out of bed this morning and felt like I was 19 years old, knee really swollen, and yeah, so I don't know how long I'm gonna be out for.
Oh, goodness me, Ben. Is that going to affect Lynn to be able to perform on the podcast as well? What information can you give on that?
To be honest, it sounds like I'm ready for the knackers yard, Lynn. It's career over. I've seen people, you know, if you're a horse, I think it would have put you down by now.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Probably.
So that's the official ending of Lynn. This is your retirement video. We better go out on something very special. Final thing with your trip to England. What's been the highlight then? Has it been like the food? You tried a Guinness, and you even met somebody from Arsenal Fan TV. So you're growing in popularity. I mean, what was the best bit so far?
It's just been a great stay so far, and I'm here for another week, so we'll see what happens. But food-wise, Chicken George in Hitchin was amazing, absolutely amazing. Gonna see what London can deliver tonight. Probably some good food, and just going to any kind of football match. It's been so long, 2 years or something since I last went, so that was amazing as well. I'm having the best time ever.
Well, let's turn our attentions though to FPL. I don't know if that means that you still have had the best time ever. Ben, Lynn, points, scores on the doors. How have your performances been? Ben, I'll start off with you. How are you feeling about FPL at the moment?
Same as ever. Always positive, always optimistic. Never quite fulfilling the fantasy. Had a solid-ish game week. 57 points. I did have Ben White, so I would have appreciated that last-minute assist. That was with 10 men. I had no goalkeeper. Edison was my first choice, and Begovic was on the bench, and I didn't want to take a hit. I think I had already made the switch. I brought in Hee-chan, so that didn't quite pay off. But yeah, overall, given the fact I think I'm at least, there was 10 or 12 points over the average, that'll do. I'll take that.
Lynn, how has been FPL for you?
Well, I've not had the best of weeks. I ended up 53 points, and I'm actually quite happy with that, because listen to this. I had Alonso, Rudiger, Jota, Jimenez, Williams, and yeah, played with 9-10 players, and the only good thing was that Captain Salah. That's what saved me. So
yeah,
we move.
Does that mean big overhauls for your team this week? Maybe a -4, -8 to make sure that you've got 11 starting players now?
Well, we just had some news about Dinnery, and I've got him in my team, so I got to do something about that.
Goodness me.
Rudiger's back.
Sorry?
Rudiger's back for the Champions League, so he should be okay for this weekend.
Yeah.
One less worry about that then. I did all right, 64 points. I had 2 players not play, so Grealish and Rafinha, and I was pretty well. I knew Rafinha wouldn't play. I kept him in even on my wild card. Whereas Grealish, I was quite disappointed by, and then Diaz annoyed me quite a bit because he came off the bench and played. I thought that was inexplicable. Thankfully, I didn't have like a massive haul on my bench. So the 2 biggest haulers of Aspilicueta and Duffy did come on for Rafinha and Grealish. But I guess another 1 extra point from Brownhill over Diaz would have been nice. But, you know, that's very nitpicky. But let's get into the good teams at the moment. And, you know, talking about maybe overhauling your team, Lynn, Brentford seem a great way to get some cheap assets who have been absolutely fantastic in terms of data, especially attack against the best teams in the league. And, you know, they're so affordable as well. Are you looking up at a double up, treble up of their assets?
Well, the core rate Bournemouth seems the best way to go. There's some really good players at that price point, but I just can't oversee him. It's time to get him in.
And Ben, you know, we've mentioned Mbeumo there. He has the most shots hitting the woodwork this season. Something that you and I have discussed through, you know, last season, this season, is kind of, I look at underlying data and I go, oh, well, Mbeumo's shooting about the right place and he's due a few goals. Or to you, does that say he's just not very good at shooting, he can't hit the target? Well, what's your kind of thoughts and feelings on that one?
I mean, I watched the game on Saturday and Brentford were extremely unlucky, not only to maybe not take a point, but you could argue that they were maybe good value for 3 points. And, you know, he was in the thick of the action. Did he hit the woodwork twice? Certainly that I've seen. And look, it's small margins, isn't it? A couple of inches either way. And, you know, he could have been eulogising over a player who's at his price point, an out of player, is delivering fantastic results. So, you know, when it comes to when it's that fine, you know, I'm coming down on the side of, well, he's just a little bit unfortunate, needs a little bit of rub of the green. We've seen that swing now in fixtures for Brentford. We had these games coming up against some of the league's toughest sides, and you maybe feared, or at least you thought, well, actually, this is going to be a true test. It's a barometer of their actual squad, of Thomas Frank. How could they perform? And look, they've come out of this little run of games with a flying set of colours. They've done really, really well, although not necessarily reflected in those results. Well, you know, I think that's a good sign, certainly for those upcoming games. And I like whether I'm prepared to go 3 deep on the bees. I'm not sure, but certainly Mbeumo's one. Ivan Toney would be a player that always seems to attract attention. He was the managers, or everybody talked about at the beginning of the campaign. Defence, if you did want to dip in, you know, Ethan Pinnock and is it Pontus Jansson? They've been the 2 standout. I think Jansson's 2 assists this season. We've seen Pinnock grab a goal already. So I don't know. There'll be at least one Brentford player coming in my team over the next few weeks. More than likely to be 2.
For me, I think it's an interesting debate. I think at least 2 is very justifiable. If 2 of those are attacking players, then great, because looking at their data, and I was really, really surprised by this, in the last 4 game weeks where they faced 3 of the toughest teams in the Premier League, you know, 3 of last year's top 5, they're still up there with the second best XG. I mean, it's absolutely insane. So they can do that against the best, the toughest defenses or the best and toughest teams. playing against much worse teams, the sky's the limit. The problem is obviously defensively they've struggled a little bit, 5.59 XG in the last 4 games. But again, contextualise it, 3 of the best attacks in the league in West Ham, Chelsea and Liverpool. I don't think a treble up is that too much because they're so cheap as well. They're great enablers. So I think Tony's a talisman and Burma's out of position, and a defender, 4.5 is a great one. I mean, Linn, is a treble up too rich for you?
Yeah, as usual, this season, I learned this last season, we're still in a pandemic. I will try my hardest to not triple up on any team. I believe in spreading the risks. And besides, I think it's enough with either Mbeumo or Tony, and maybe another defender like Johnson. He's a good option. Ayer is not bad either, like Raya, for example. So I could definitely see like Raya and one of the attackers.
I mean, I'm not so keen on getting Raya just because I feel like the defenders of Brentford, we know how good they are at set pieces. They're a money ball, data-driven team. And so I think on the dead ball situations, they're going to be trying or getting good opportunities. And Janssen actually has the 3rd best XG of all defenders so far this season. He's had 3 shots inside the box. He's looking pretty good, on those dead ball situations. Pinnock as well, 5 shots inside the box, 1.34 XGI. So they're fantastic at those. Liverpool are one of the best teams at set pieces, but I would say that Brentford are not too far behind. So I think that Raya is almost a wasted transfer because you've got the likes of maybe, I don't know if I can trust in Ramsdale now after the Crystal Palace game, but Sanchez is great at a 4.5, but you wouldn't expect a Brighton defender really to get some sort of output, whereas you could expect a Brentford one. So with that kind of situation there, I think heavy investment is it is something that we should look at doing. Let's move it on to maybe an individual player that might have more teammates kind of coming into the picture. What's our thoughts and feelings on Son? Is he quickly becoming almost an essential asset? What do you think on him, Linn?
I really like him as a player. So many got screwed with Son this week. I feel so bad for him. I think a guy was on a -8 because he bought him out, and then
Oh God.
Yeah. So going forward, I definitely think if I'm going with any Spurs asset, it will be Son. But I still don't fully trust them to play as creatively as I wish. So I still a wait and see for me, because it's still quite expensive, but definitely got my eyes on him.
Yeah, he's looking fantastic. And in the next 3 fixtures, I think as well, people are kind of saying, watch and wait, because it's West Ham, Man U and Everton, and they're kind of on the fixture difficulty is red for Tottenham. But these are teams that have been really poor defensively this season. Son could and possibly will score goals against any or all of them. And so after that, then there's Leeds, Burnley, Brentford, Norwich in fantastic kind of run of games after that as well. I think bringing him now, I was going to bring him in on my wild card. You've mentioned kind of the COVID situation there. And I thought it's not worth the risk. And I had that facility of not taking a hit, not kind of being screwed over. And I'm not too upset about it anyway. The person that I probably wouldn't have had in my team that I have is Antonio. So I wouldn't have had him in and maybe made a Brownhill up to Son. I missed out on points, but I'd rather have the secure situation there. Ben, have you been put off by Son, maybe Kane as well, by the fact that the Tottenham team are still really bad? That, like, a lot of people were expecting them to give Newcastle an absolute rout, run over. Then you didn't.
I didn't.
But a lot of people did, and I think this is kind of a situation once again where it's kind of fixtures. People are too fixated on them, and they just expected Kane and Son to run riot. They did both get a goal involvement. They did both get fairly good points, but it wasn't as amazing as one would expect. And they conceded 2 goals. So through vast swathes of the game, I just thought Tottenham weren't very good. They conceded very early on, and they looked out of sorts. Tanguy and Ndombele had one of his best performances, though. It seems like it's really weird. Are they finding their feet, or are they just still not very good at the moment?
Let's not read too much into that Newcastle game. I don't think. Without the fanfare, without the off the pitch goings on, it's still Newcastle. And look, that energy, that optimism, that St. James's Park buzzing, the electric crowd probably helped that first 10 minutes. And we started really on the front foot. I think Tottenham, to their credit, probably done well to manage that situation. They could quite easily have capitulated. But then again, Newcastle, after that goal, sort of regressed, and we allowed Tottenham to come at us. We weren't pressing high enough. We talked about, well, you mentioned it, and Ndombele, probably his best performance of the season. His quality is undoubted, but it's his work rate and his energy levels, which have always been, are talked about. And against Newcastle, he had the freedom to do what he wanted when he wanted. And any player at the top level, regardless of ability, they do have something about them, and they can hurt you if you give players 5, 6, 7 yards to take a touch, look up and play their ball. So I'm not totally convinced that this is a new era for Tottenham, the turnaround that probably supporters hope and wish for. For Son, the silver lining on the cloud, you would say, is, well, if he's still performing when Tottenham aren't, then what can he produce when eventually Nuno hopefully gets things right? Maybe the return of Harry Kane, he's got that monkey off his back, his first goal of the season. Does that help Son? Does that now mean that defenders have to sort of, if they weren't already, preoccupy themselves with Harry Kane again now, and does that allow Heung-min Son with a little bit more freedom to roam and do his stuff? We know what such a deadly partnership those two players are together. Look, I like Son because he offers a little bit more value than Kane in terms of a price point, and he's got the proven form at the moment. But let's not overlook the fact that Kane is world class. One of the best strikers in the world. It's just, I don't think the tactics have helped. I think Nuno's still searching and looking for that his best 11 in that team. Maybe through injury, maybe through the Europa Conference League, he's not got that balance quite right. But we'll see. It was an okay performance. They deserved the 3 points. I kind deny that, but were Tottenham great? I think that's probably more down to the fact that Newcastle were just pretty poor, really, and maybe it was a little bit of that nervous energy, that sort of and energy levels just dipped. Callum Wilson shouldn't have really started, I don't think. Coming off the back of that injury, he got his goal, great, but I think he would have made more of an impact from the bench. And there was a couple of players in there, maybe Lascelles as well, struggling with injuries. So it is what it is. Move on. For me, Tottenham are generally just a team to watch. Son, if anyone, I'll be plumbing for Son at this moment in time.
I've got to ask both of you though. Son is potentially a template breaker, isn't he? Because he's such at a weird price point at 10 million. He's difficult to get in. Who would you have to get out, or who would you want to get out of your team, Linn, to bring him in?
Well, I would have to give up Lukaku or Salah, I think.
And at the moment, arguably you could get rid of Lukaku, but he's got this great run of games. Because the thing is, I think people are focusing on the run of games a little bit too much, because Lukaku four blanks in a row now, and there looks to be, maybe it's been a few difficult games, but there looks to be a few problems at Chelsea. Whereas Son himself, we've kind of talked about, he's transcended fixtures, he's transcended form. He's just been absolutely brilliant. You could justify that. Salah, no way. Can't even entertain that. But it is interesting. He's offering a predicament, as will Kane, if he starts. And maybe it's not an if, it's more when he starts getting back to his levels. Maybe the discussion point through the season will be when to own Ronaldo, Lukaku, and Kane. It might be a treble up of conveyor belt premium strikers almost. Get them 1 week, get them the next week, whatever. That might be the tactic going forward. I mean, for you, Ben, do you think that Son should be in people's teams ahead of Lukaku?
That's a big stretch. It's difficult. I mean, I've never gravitated towards Son because I can just never seem to prioritize my premium spots really for those striking or Salah, and to try and get Son in as well is difficult. I see the ceiling on Lukaku being a lot higher. If Tottenham were performing and I had confidence in Nuno, if I had the Nuno from Wolves from those first 2 seasons when they came up from the Championship, where they played really attacking, flowing football, they looked a threat, not this conservative, passive approach. If Tottenham weren't playing Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, if they had better players in and around him who had a little bit of form, the Dele Alli from maybe 3 seasons ago, I think it was, maybe if Burgoyne was fully fit, maybe if Harry Kane had shown a little bit better form this season, then I'd be more inclined to give Son some serious consideration. But at the minute, the negatives outweigh the positives. Even though, like I say, as an individual, he can transcend fixtures. He's a great player, but he's just too difficult to get into my team.
So are there any other template busters before we move on to what I think is a very important captaincy talk? I mean, Linn, do you think there's anybody in the horizon that you want to bring attention to that you think could potentially be an essential own in the coming weeks?
Well, essential own, yes. Essential captain, maybe not. But Lukaku against Norwich, we can't ignore it. We need to get in there. We need to have him, I think.
Oh, this is a fair point. Lukaku over the last 4 game weeks, though, not great. What do you think is the reason then? You said he's going to be an essential own. That's based on fixtures, though, not on form. Looking at the last 4 game weeks,
as well in ownership.
So ownership and fixtures, I mean, is that too much influenced by the crowd? Because over the last 4 game weeks, 5 shots in the box, 1 XG, no goals, 1.64 XGI. I mean, if you're going for a Chelsea player, could you argue for Werner instead?
You could if you rated Werner, which I don't. So for me, it's Lukaku or no striker at all.
Oh,
and we've seen Lukaku. We know he can. When he holds, he holds. And if he's got one of those game weeks, like for me, the FOMO is too strong. I need to have him in. I might not captain him because I'm still not sure because of his previous game weeks.
Yeah.
Tuchel. I'm still not sure he's the best option for captaincy. But do I need to own him? Yes, I do. Because if he does hold, I want to get some of the points or I will be screwed. And if he doesn't, if he blanks again, a lot of managers will be sitting there with a blank captain.
Yeah.
That wouldn't really affect me. It's only the hold that would probably affect me. And I just think it's too great a risk not to have him.
Yeah. And looking at the fixtures over the next 4 game weeks, Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley, Leicester. I mean, you can even throw Man United in there, Watford, just continuing, that there's so many good fixtures there in the future now for Chelsea, and it is an interesting situation. I don't think too many people are sleeping on Lukaku, like you said. The problem is the high ownership. But throwing it to you, Ben, is that a negative way to play FPL? Kind of protecting yourself, buying people not because you think they're good or that you want them, but because everybody else does, and you don't want to lose out.
Is this a very leading question, specifically tailored for me, knowing what kind of response I will give?
Definitely not.
It's not how I play the game. But then again, I play the game very differently to everybody else, which is probably reflected in the overall rank. But I play the game to how I enjoy it. I'm just a prime example there. I looked at my game week score, and I'm more template at the moment because of the rise in ownership than I have been in a long time. I'm still classed as very differential, but I think it's up to 30%, which I'm absolutely disgusted with myself there.
That's disgusting.
That is, that's.
I don't know if I can talk to you anymore. This is differential Dinnery I used to know.
This is when without checking my team regularly, and I've just looked there, and then I had a look at my game week rank, and 57, it was decent, but I think the overall game week rank was something like 2.2 million, something ridiculous like that. I just think, what is the point? You know what it is? I'd rather get 10 points and finish in the top 1 million. I don't like being with the crowd. It's boring. First game week of the season, I think I had 80 plus points. What was my game week rank? 3 million, something ridiculous like that. I have no interest in that, and the fact that we're now talking about Lukaku, who I've got in, I've had him in from the very beginning, and the fact that people are looking towards that Norwich game, I'm almost just thinking, you know what? I might even sell him for Harry Kane. I really do. Like last weekend, the obvious pick was Mo Salah. Yeah. Who did I go for? Bruno, because I wanted to be different. I need to be different. So, look, I don't look at fixtures. I'd prefer to unearth a hidden gem, a once in a season haul from a player that nobody expects. I'd rather have 1 out of 38 game weeks where we have a cracking one than just settle for the sheep week in and week out.
It's an interesting approach, and that's why I asked you the question, because there's differing ways to approach it. Question for you though, Linn, is there's so much focus on Lukaku, and obviously Chelsea are fantastic, the team are, but they have been not great of late. Similar price, Jamie Vardy. He's playing Brentford. He's got some fairly good fixtures up ahead. Brentford next, then Arsenal, Leeds. Chelsea's obviously a difficult one, but then Watford, Southampton, Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham. He's on better form, maybe not in a better team, but why is he not in the same discussion point as almost like an essential? Because he's far outshone Lukaku this season, almost with double the points, cheaper, and he is the top scoring forward so far.
Yeah, I think it's a price issue there, because he's still quite expensive, and Leicester had a terrible start to the season. So I don't think anyone trusts him yet. I think that's the main issue here. Personally, I
do.
That
I've already got him.
That's good. He's got someone who's got his back. Personally, I'm tempted by him, and I plan to. Lukaku gets this one chance against Norwich. If he doesn't score, he's out, probably for Wardy.
Are we concerned in the slightest that Norwich is it back-to-back clean sheets? Or are we just looking at the teams that they've played and thinking, well, Chelsea are far superior and Lukaku should return? Or, on the flip side, has Daniel Farke, who's tweaked his formation, he's went with a 5 at the back, he dropped Williams, and he brought in Gianni Ulis, and they're looking a lot more solid. Is that something to be slightly concerned about, maybe?
See, this was going to be the last point. I mean, I was going to make it like a captaincy discussion, but I think it's a fair one in terms of Vardy as well. Maybe he's not a captain for this week, but I think the Lukaku thing is fascinating, the focus on it. But yeah, Norwich, arguably, have they turned a corner and almost at the right time? Obviously, Chelsea next away at Stamford Bridge, very, very difficult. But then they've got a really good run of fixtures, Leeds, Brentford, Southampton. This might be almost planned by Farke, that he saw the first games of the season, was like, realistically, we're not going to get many points there. I might experiment. I might try a few ideas. I'll keep my best players rested and kind of control mitigating factors that would put the team at risk in those situations. And now he might push them on. And Chelsea might be an opportunity just to kind of give a psychological boost to the team that they probably won't win, but they might go out and try and get a draw or make it very, very difficult for Chelsea, just so that the players think we can push on. It's probably too early to say anything like that, but it was something that came to my mind after seeing that they got another clean sheet this week after people were saying Brighton will destroy them. They're so much better than them. What do you think on that one, though, Lynn? Is it a good run of fixtures? Is it Farke kind of managing the team with longevity in mind?
I don't think that's his strategy. I think he just wants to win games. Like, he's got to win games. He can't sacrifice the team like that. Because it can't. It's still a lot of game weeks to go. Yeah, but if he doesn't want to be relegated, that's not a good strategy.
I just want to put it out there, and this is something that came up in the discussion I had last week. What do you believe Norwich's philosophy is for the Premier League? Because they come up, 2 seasons ago, they didn't really perform very well. They went straight back down. They've bounced back. Not a lot seems to have changed this season. They have the same manager. The owners, there's there a lack of investment? Is there, we have never seen any change in how the team really play. Are Norwich almost happy, and are they settling for this yo-yo mentality? And, therefore, is Daniel Farke that worried about getting wins on the board? Are the owners just like, well, we'll get our money, we'll accept the parachute payments, we may bring a couple of players in the Championship, and then we'll bounce back, and then hopefully there may be another 3 teams worse than us when we come up next time. But if not, we'll go back down and then we'll come back up. I mean, like I say, it doesn't, to me, if it's not working, you change it. And Norwich don't seem to have changed things at all. The bulk of that squad that were in the Premier League remain. You still have the likes of Pookie there and Cantwell, who arguably isn't getting his game at the moment. So there's a strong core in that team. And so they've proved that they're not capable of staying in the Premier League. And yet they persist with that side. And again, is it almost an acceptance before even a ball's even kicked? Well, we're not going to spend loads of money because it'll make no difference. We'll go down, but we will come back up from the Championship.
I mean, what's your thoughts and feelings on that, Lynn?
It's a possibility, but I still think we're human beings. We're optimistic. That's how we are wired. I think they can stay up, and if they do stay up, they'll get the money to get better players and evolve. That would be my guess, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. This is the first time that Norwich have played 5 at the back since June 2020. Like, it's been a long old time since they've experimented with that. Yeah, it is interesting, and yeah, I agree with you a bit, Lynn, that they must have an optimism that they'll do something. There is, a legitimate discussion point that maybe they were planning their season, trying to get players at peak fitness and peak playing ability when they think that they could win the most. But there is that other point that, you know, they need to get points on the board at the right time. I don't know if they'll do it against Chelsea. That's why we're discussing it about game week 9. Let's turn it back to game week 9 then for the captaincy. Lukaku, I'm not that warm on. Salah seems to be the best guy for me, just indisputable. Same for you, Lynn?
Yeah, it would probably be between Salah and one of the Chelsea defenders, depending who starts in the Champions League, if it's Alonso or Chilwell. If Chilwell starts again, I'm hoping and praying Alonso starts against Norwich. And then I could be tempted to captain him and have Salah VC. So if he doesn't play, I'll get Salah. Because I think looking at Tuchel and how he's been playing for years, you usually have a big bully up top who like creates space and other players come in and actually scores the goals. And that's what we've seen of Lukaku so far. So I'm not sure Lukaku is the great goal scorer we were thinking he might be. I think maybe we should look at Alonso, Chilwell, Azpilicueta. Maybe those are the players we should focus on.
Ben, who's your favourite captain for this game week? Is it a Chelsea defender? It's very logically worked out. Is it Salah? Or is there a differential Dinnery that's just kind of coming into view?
I mean, I'll throw another player into the mix just because it hasn't been discussed. Nobody really appeals. There's no massively standout picks this week. You know, if you want to maybe look elsewhere, I'd have to question our boys in defence, Newcastle, and how maybe Palace have been playing. Really done really well at the Emirates. So you would expect Wilfried Zaha, but Edouard looks a handful. He got another great goal. Could Ramsey have done a little bit better? Maybe so. So they may come into the thinking also as well. You know, Tottenham just defensively as well, particularly centrally. Eric Dyer, that was just absolutely atrocious. Davinson Sanchez, you know, we'll be watching that European game to see who he starts, and the likelihood is, you know, those who start will not be in on a Sunday. So, and West Ham continue their good, solid run of form. And do we look past, you know, Mikel Antonio, you know, against that in a derby? Again, you're going to have the home crowd. They're going to be pumped. We'll watch the Europa game and maybe draw conclusions from David Moyes' starting 11. But maybe Mikel Antonio isn't a bad shout this game week.